So there's a certain intentionality that I bring to all the things I do with great purpose. So that habit of intentionality is essential for high performance. The practice of intentionality requires you to be able to pay attention to your environment. And this is the mental aspect. See, you and we interact with our world at two levels. One is at the level of perception of our five senses. Then, out of this, you construct a certain meaning, a narrative, a story. And that story is what people live in. They don't see life as perception, they see life as the meaning that they attach to perception.
Welcome to Grow and Learn, and to everyone watching on Healnlearn. Today I'm speaking with a quite famous person. I'm speaking to a medical doctor from Harvard Business School, Dr. Ravi Iyer, with experience of more than 42 years in various spheres of medicine. He's also well acquainted in neurology, in the science of the mind, how the mind works and how to create successful success in teams, performance in teams, in athletes, I believe. But the interesting thing is that he's also a TEDx speaker, and in 2024 he was voted number 3 worldwide. So we're speaking to a famous person here. Hi, Ravi, welcome. Or Dr.
Hi,
Iyer.
no,
How
that's
do
okay. That's
Ravi.
fine. Hi,
Okay.
Zarina. It's a pleasure
Hi,
being here.
welcome. Ravi, you've had an amazing life transformation coming from humble beginnings in India and achieving such heights. It took you 42 years, but what would you say was the greatest contributor to your success over these years?
Uh, the, I think the greatest contributor was knowing exactly something that staying to a singular aspect of what I wanted to do with my life. Everything I've done in my life has always been on only one thing, and that was I was always focused on an intense curiosity about what makes life work and how do you make life work when it doesn't work. So throughout my entire life, I've always done things addressing this one question: why is life not working now, and how do you make it work? That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And to address this one question, I have used many talents, many gifts, but they are all focused on how do you make life work when it doesn't work. So when I started training myself as a physician, I was focusing on understanding the biology of human beings and the biology of human biology and general biology in general. The question was always what makes the body work, and why does it not work in certain conditions, and in those conditions what can you do to restore balance and restore functionality. And that took me through medicine. Then later I went into research, again the same question: why is things happening a particular way, and what can we do? Can we understand why it is happening, and how can we make it work when it is not working? Then later, when I went back into medicine and then started uh, working in a hospital, and I became the chairman of the Department of Medicine there, the same question again: what makes the department work? How's the life of the department? How does it work? Why? What can we do to make our teams better? So it's always the same question: how is this set of circumstances in life? How is it working? What is it not what is preventing it from functioning at its best, and how do you make it function at its best?
Mhm. Your topics that you're focusing on right now are focus, connection, and community. So,
Yeah, so what we found along the way is what I found was there's three things that you need for performance at any level. It doesn't matter. It is always the same, whether it is individual or it is groups or it is organizations. You need the ability to focus upon one set core set of principles and stay on that. And then you need to be able to connect with your team members or with, you have to connect first with yourself and then you connect with the people you're working with. Then from there, you build a community of aligned people, all aligned to the same mission. So focus, connection, and community allows for performance no matter where you go.
mhm,
If you want to expand it out into the general community you live in, it is the same thing again. If you want an entire city or a town to accomplish something big, you need to get them all aligned to the same principle. Then you need to get them all connected as a community on one thing. And then that community moves together to achieve a common goal. So, focus, connection, and community is the fundamental principle, or I call it the three pillars of performance. And and that is the one thing that I learned along across 42 years.
mhm. When let's, I suggest we unpack all of them, what's behind each of these focus, connection, and community. But before we dive into focus, I would also like to ask you to touch on the subject of whether you tackle focus simply from the mental side of it, or do you also touch focus and any disbalances that may occur on bodily dysfunction and how this affects
Yeah,
focus, since you're a medical doctor as well? And also, but because I want to let you speak, you're such a
yeah,
good
yeah,
speaker
yeah.
as well. So I'm going to ask my a few questions up front. And my third question regarding focus is, do you use techniques that are, I would call them meta skills, paramental, something
Mhm.
that you use like different frequencies of mind in order to achieve or to train the mind to reach this focus?
So the first, to answer your first question, whether the sound mind in a sound body, you need to have both because you're using the instrument of the body to accomplish your mental function. So when you are focusing on, when you're trying to teach people focus, if the body is, there's a saying in India, the person with fever, the person who's hungry, the person who lacks clothing and bodily comfort cannot function to accomplish anything meaningful in life. So the first thing you need to do is you need to have physical fitness to some extent. And I mean, that doesn't mean that you have to be a super muscular person, at an Olympic level, but you need to have a body that is not diseased in a way that interferes with the ability to simply carry out simple daily activities. So if you're already ill with a disease, you have a heart disease or your kidney disease or you're burning up with fever, then those are fundamental things that need to be fixed before you can even talk about mental function. Simple thing, there are certain simple principles. If as long as the person has a certain level of physical fitness, then certain habits that align yourself to focus are essential. Our body functions on the sunrise and sunset cycle. So you really do need to be able to have a habit of getting up at a decent hour in the morning. I tend to get up early. I get up around 4:30 every morning. That's me. Not everyone gets up at 4:30, but I find value in getting up at 4:30 because by 5 in the morning I'm ready and I spend about between 5 to 7 for 2 hours. Everything is quiet. No, there are no distractions. I can engage in certain creative activities that I do. I can get my mind aligned for the things that I need to accomplish in the day. And by 7 a.m., I'm already well on my day. And then I hit the road. I go to the clinic. My first patient rolls in at 8 o'clock, and I start seeing patients until 11:30 or so. That's so there is a certain pattern that I have set for my life that goes according to certain predictability, and it really helps to when you want to be accomplishing something meaningful every day. It helps to have a organized system where you have a defined periods of time carved out that is called your time. So my time between 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. is my time. Nobody disturbs that my time. Similarly, between 12 till 2 p.m. for 2 hours, I do this kind of podcasts and things like that. But then I also have time where I eat my lunch, and at that time when I'm eating my lunch, I shut the door and it's my time again. My attention is entirely on my meal. So I don't eat and do other things while eating. So when I eat, I have a certain discipline about eating. My entire mental attention is on my food. And I engage with my food like the way I engage with a person, because I treat food as if it is something that I'm going to be entering it into my body. It has to do its job in a way that nourishes me, and I can only do that when I'm paying attention to my food. I can't be distracted about it. So there's a certain intentionality that I bring to all the things I do with great purpose. So that habit of intentionality is essential for high performance. People who perform at high levels will typically be extremely intentional about anything that they do. So it is something that uh, I teach when I tell people and I coach on classes. I teach them about intentionality. Now the practice of intentionality requires you to be able to pay attention to your environment, and this is the mental aspect. See, you and we interact with our world at two levels. One is at the level of perception of our five senses. You have light molecules, photons, striking your retina, giving you color and light and image. You have scent molecules that drift up your nose and give you sense of smell. You have other molecules striking your tongue, giving you taste. You have touch, which are molecules of one person hitting the other hand, the sense organs on your hand, giving you sense of touch. You have molecules of air hitting your eardrum, giving you sound. Now, these are your real perception of your reality. Then, out of this, you construct a certain meaning, a narrative, a story. And that story is what people live in. They make up the story of their life, and they believe that the story that they experience, that their mind makes up, is their life. Their story is not, they don't see life as perception. They see life as the meaning that they attach to perception. Now, most people, do not see any difference between perception and the story. But the real joy and vitality and excitement and fulfillment does not lie in the story, it lies in the perception. The story is like the menu in a restaurant. The menu is a description of the meal. Perception is the meal. People who are engaged in the story of living are going into the restaurant of life, eating the menu and wondering why it doesn't taste so good.
Such a great parallel.
So a lot of people get shocked when they realize I tell them that you have been eating the menu instead of the meal. And what we do is we go on a vacation, we go on some place where the stories that we have in our past do not apply anymore. And then we enjoy that newness of that place. We learn to experience because there is no other story from our past, no past narrative that fits into the experience of that moment. So we enjoy it. And then we make the fatal mistake of thinking that we can only have this kind of vacation fun if we go to a different place. All we have to go is go away from the stories of our life and learn to perceive, learn to pay attention with intentionality to. So meditation is nothing but an observational exercise. The Japanese tea ceremony is an observation exercise. A Zen koan is an observation exercise. Observation is getting practice in perceiving without attaching meaning. So in my workshops, I conduct exercises where I'll get two people and I'll tell one person to tell a story from their life, and the other person I will tell them to listen, but listen like as if you are a box, like a space of listening. Don't listen to understand and comprehend and reply. Listen as empty space. People get deeply impacted when they are listening to somebody as empty space.
How so? I'm not quite sure. Wouldn't they be more impacted otherwise if they were actively listening?
No. Most people, when I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you 100% attentive as pure space without trying to interact and be, you as a speaker become heard for the first time, and very often the other person who's speaking to me suddenly feels that somebody is truly listening. I have had
Basically,
people.
give. So that means give the person space. Is that what the
Yes,
method is?
yes. When you give people space without interposing your meaning into their space, let them express themselves in your space where you are just passively accepting whatever they give. Most people have no experience with that. And when they experience it for the first time, they break down and start crying.
Okay.
The reason why we love a dog is because the dog does that. Dog gives us an unconditional acceptance that we don't get from other people. It doesn't impose any of its meanings upon you.
I
That's the
still have
reason
a
why
third part of the question
yeah, yeah,
regarding
yeah, go ahead.
which you partially answered actually with the meditation part of how you train it. But so the practices you 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 use in this methodology is basically the observation, what you call meditation.
I call observation as meditation. All meditation is observation.
Mhm.
Even when you are sitting before a light and imagining some place, you're observing that.
Give a breather, give space, because I gave so much space that I forgot my next thought.
So, so the I'm not surprised that it happened. It happens when there's silence. And the thing that happens is when you enter inner silence, then the thoughts that control your narratives get shut down and people forget their line of thinking.
Mhm. Now I recalled when you said you had throughout your life, you had the focus on finding a solution to each problem with the question, how can I make this better? How can I improve it?
Not necessarily a solution. I first looked at what is it that makes life work, and then when it doesn't work, how can you help life to work? When I try to, it is slightly different than a solution. It does look like a solution, but sometimes you can solve a problem just by giving it, by understanding what is required for it to make, to what is missing from the equation, and then letting that missing element manifest forth, and automatically everything falls back into place. So yes, it does look like as if I'm actively looking for a solution, but I'm looking for completion more than solution. What makes an incomplete situation complete?
Does this require you to have the skill of the observer?
Yes,
Mhm.
yes. It requires you to be able to be a space where things show up. See, every time you give a meaning to something, it prevents it from showing up because then it has to show up only within the dimension of the meaning.
Mhm. So, can we expand a little bit on that? Does this have to do with the um, state of surrender?
Yes. So the way the to so you are actually trying to lead the conversation into Eastern philosophy, which is uh, I generally don't talk about it, though I actually practice it. I don't talk about it because most people in the West, in Europe, it's slightly different. They are more attuned to it. In America, they don't understand Eastern philosophy of surrender as much as people in Europe do, um, especially in Vienna, Austria. And I know that there's a large community engaged in inquiry into those kind of thought process. But when you say surrender, most people don't understand what surrender is.
Mhm.
People live their life as if they are a particular identity, and usually the identity is one of I am such and such, these are my beliefs, this is my like and dislike, and I think the world needs to be in this form and that way and has to function this way, and this person or these kind of attitudes are good, and these kind of attitudes and this person is bad. So these are so everything is plus and minus, always binary. This binary way of looking at things does not look at life the way life actually is. Life is not binary. Life is actually a spectrum of continuing movement of varying flavors across the board. And so the minute you actually put a certain definition, you freeze life into a one form.
Mm.
And then Anything that is frozen can no longer evolve, can no longer grow. It can also no longer shrink, but it becomes dead. It is no longer alive. Living things change all the time. They either grow and expand or they shrink and reduce, but they never stay the same. Whenever you freeze something, it stops living, it becomes dead at that moment. Every narrative you have is like taking a photograph of life. A photograph is a fixed image,
Mm.
it is not a movie, it is not a continuous evolution. It is one snapshot in time. And even time itself is a snapshot of a continuing moment of beginning, from beginning to end. There is no, there is a continuous becoming in life. The life continuously is becoming something and it continues to become, it doesn't stop becoming. And when you take a snapshot, you are freezing that becoming into one moment. Each one of our narratives is a snapshot.
Most people, including myself, everybody basically, whenever they speak, inevitably use these frozen narratives.
Yes.
How can we make sure or observe that our speech is alive rather than fixated and dead?
So you begin by you begin by focusing on your own inner space and observing the perception of the other person's speech. Don't try to understand it, observe the perception of the other person's speech. When you keep focusing on being a space of listening, what will happen is your own awareness will expand to include that other person in that awareness. At some point, when you open yourself up enough, your awareness and that person's awareness become one. And there is what I call communion. When there is communion, then the voice of that other person becomes the voice inside you. And when you speak that person's voice. Right now, when I am speaking, you are not listening entirely to me. There is a voice in your head that is telling you what you are hearing. You are listening to yourself tell you about what I am telling you.
Mm-hmm.
That is not listening. You are not listening to me, you're listening to yourself telling yourself about what I am telling you. When you start to listen as space,
Uh-huh.
for the first time, you actually begin to listen to the other person. And then whatever answer comes out, whatever speech comes out, will be the speech that the other person needs to hear.
And
Not what you want to say, but what that other person needs. Your speech has no value unless the speech is what the other person needs.
and in the format of a podcast, how can we apply it in a way that the value goes to the listener? That
So
my speech has my speech takes out of you the best that the listener needs.
the first thing is when you are speaking to a camera and there is no live person in front of you, then you only speak to yourself. So you first enter your own self. Even though your eyes are looking at the camera, you speak to about subjects that are authentic and true to you. So when you speak to yourself, in your audience, there will be people for whom that self of yours is of meaning and of value, and they will hear. There will be other people for whom that self of yours is of no value, and they will just walk away. But it doesn't matter how many hear, as long as one person hears. So when you speak to a virtual audience, don't speak to with the intention of trying to be heard by other people. Speak to yourself, honestly to yourself, about something that you are speaking to. Yeah. So right now I am speaking, but whatever I'm speaking entirely about things that are really, really, really valid only for me.
Mhm.
I'm not trying to convince you.
Mhm.
I'm not trying to teach you either. I'm trying to explore and open and show and invite you to join. But it is okay if you don't comprehend. See, a lot of people sit in a person-to-person meeting like this, and they are anxious that the other person understand them. I'm not interested in making the other person understand. I'm interested in expressing what is important.
Mhm.
Your understanding will come if you are ready to understand.
Very, very interesting.
But the most important thing at all points is, are you ready to look in within yourself? If you can look within yourself, then you will discover that there is a part of you that is distinct from the stories that you make, from the descriptions that you give of the perceptions of your life. The, so people don't live life as if they are a space within which the narratives pop up as optional conditions. In truth, what you are is a space of awareness, and in that space of awareness, narratives pop up.
Mhm.
I'll give you an example. I had a conversation with a monk many years ago when I was 22, and he asked me, "Did you have a good bowel movement?" So I said, "Yeah, I had a good bowel movement." He said, "Okay, when you evacuated your bowels, are you now concerned after you have evacuated about that bowel movement, or are you still interested in the bowel movement?" I said, "No." And I was wondering where he was going. He said, "You ate food yesterday, and your digestive system converted that food into useful energy, into blood, bone, tissue, and some part of the food became excreta. Like that, your brain takes in the input from your senses, the perceptions of your senses, and makes thoughts and dreams and hopes and likes and dislikes and plans and fears and anxieties, just like your bowel movement makes excreta." And he said, "You're playing in shit and stinking up your life, thinking it is real. You like your gut using food for the survival of the body. The brain makes stories for the survival of your identity. You are the awareness, the space within which all these operations occur.
Mhm.
You can ignore these operations and just let it happen, just like the way you let your excreta happen. And you can walk through life just as pure awareness, and nothing of your life will ever be different. You will accomplish the same things. You will, in fact, accomplish more because you will not get in the way.
So understanding this, is this a way to separate yourself from the ego?
The ego is the mechanism by which you create excreta,
Mhm.
the mental excreta of your life.
So all the dreams, desires, all the
All that
strategic
is mental
desires.
excreta. It's all. So the ego, just like the gut, the digestive system has stomach, pancreas, liver, small intestine, large intestine, and all the glands that secrete various enzymes and juices. Like that, the brain has the ego, and it has the intellect, and it has all the machinery, both the wiring of the neurons and the software coding of the ego that allows it to create the functionality, just like the gut creates the functionality of the digestive system. It is just it is just a mechanism for the performance of certain functions. It is like you getting in a car and then driving and suddenly confusing yourself with the steering wheel, the engine, the motor, and the wheel, and getting all upset when the rubber tire goes into a pothole.
Mhm. When you
You
have
know,
dreams, though, the way you became a medical doctor at Harvard, nonetheless, was this, how did you create this goal of yours? Were you aware of this philosophy back then when you set this goal for yourself?
no, I started by looking at what why does my life work in a particular way, and then that question posed by my ego, which asked the question, because I'll tell you what. So the part of my body that my mind had a confusion about the way it was working. So there's a part of your mind that is driven by your own awareness, and that awareness asks the question, to whom does this confusion exist? And then it started asking how to solve this confusion. And in that search took me to medical school and then to research, and that search took me to Harvard. And along the way, I found many different kind of answers, but I ultimately came to this answer that what I am was never confused. It was just the awareness, and then this other part works, and sometimes it gets misaligned, and then you experience it as confusion. But then once the separation happened very well, there was no other problem. But it took me a while to find the answer. So what you are looking at, okay, your ego made the plan to become a doctor, but that's not how it happened. The the ego asked the question, why why is life so painful for me? Why is life so confusing for me? And because that problem was so intense and it was so necessary for me to survive that problem, that I started immediately asking the question, and it started processing it, and it pushed me further and further until I suddenly realized that, hey, the person who's seeing the confusion is not there at all. All I am is pure space.
Are you still driven to do the things that you initially set yourself to do?
I'm not driven, but I do have a goal right now which I choose to manifest. If it happens, it happens, but it is not me manifesting it. It is actually something that is given to you like a gift. And now that I have seen what is possible, out of the desire of that possibility comes the desire to make sure that other people experience it also. Everyone is similarly in pain because they keep confusing themselves with the engine, the steering wheel, and the tire of their life instead of understanding that they are this space within which all happens. They are just the driver of the course of their life. And they have the option of getting out of the car anytime they want and not suffer the traffic jams and the difficulties of everything. Even when it is traffic jammed, they are not in any difficulty. They are sitting inside, comfortable inside the car.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what happens, right? When you when you confuse your life with the stories of the life, when you confuse the menu from the meal, then you are stuck. You are stuck on the restaurant table of life, unable to dictate how life manifests for you. You are waiting for life to come in some format that you cannot control. And you're scared it'll come to you in some way that you won't like, and you're constantly manipulating and constantly trying to figure out how's it going to come in the next 5 minutes. Let me predict it. The tiger that cannot predict where the deer is going to appear is going to go hungry. The deer that cannot predict where the tiger is going to appear is going to get eaten. This desire to predict is universal. All creatures want to predict and position themselves to capture the advantage of life without realizing that they don't need to predict at all. Life exists to only serve them.
In order for people to practice this philosophy, they need to know the philosophy, like they need to have these values. Is that correct?
They need to just recognize that they are space.
Mm-hmm.
If they experience once you experience yourself as pure space, then automatically all the stories become seen for just stories, as options. You don't need to control it. You don't need to dictate it. All you have to do is sit in space comfortably, know that your life itself will spin the story in front of you, and then you can decide which story you want to give attention to for the next 5 minutes, or for the next 5 days, next 5 months, or the next 5 years you want to give. Right now, the story that I have decided that I want to give attention to is the story of making everybody become aware that they are space. There will come a time when I will no longer have the desire to pay attention to that goal, and I'll just stop doing it.
And so this goal arose naturally by itself?
Yes,
Yes.
as a natural self-expression. Just like a flame cannot have any choice except to emit light and heat. It is nature. Just like water can do nothing except be wet and flow. It is its nature. It is the nature of awareness to expand and excite the awareness that is itself around, all around it.
Mm-hmm.
It is its nature. There is no other reason for it. It doesn't do that because of an agenda. It has no choice in the matter to do anything other than shed light and heat.
When you teach your system to high-performing teams, how do you integrate this philosophy?
So I don't go into this kind of vivid depth because this is at a level where the practical application of this is to first teach people the ability to create space in their interactions with people. Once you teach people, so let me explain this. Okay, you go to Cirque du Soleil, the amazing, and you see the person with a bicycle on a tightrope 100 feet in the ground above the ground, and he is balancing it, and then he takes, instead of two wheels, he takes one wheel off the, and he's doing on one wheel, then he does a handstand. Now the fundamental essence of doing all of that is only one thing: it is balance. But when somebody is trying to learn to get on a bicycle for balance, initially you put them on the ground with two wheels on the ground and your hand at the back of the bicycle holding on to it and some training wheels, and you give them some idea of balance.
Mhm.
And then for many years, they will do nothing more than pedal from this corner to that corner, go from the house to the grocery store and come back. And they are happy. They will never think of going on the tightrope and doing cartwheels. And they will be quite happy and very functional. So that is fine with me too. I, but they have learned balance. They have learned to create space in their small thing, and they are functional. Then out of 100 such people, there'll be one person who will say, "Teacher, I know how to go to the grocery store, but I want to go to the grocery store without holding the handlebar. I want to do like this and grow." All right. And then you teach them that. And then for many months, they'll go down from their house to the grocery store with their hands like this, and they're going down the bicycle. Right. Then out, out of 100 such people who do this, there'll be one person who will say, I want to go to the grocery store like this, but only on one wheel. You teach them that, like that.
Yeah.
So what you are seeing right now is you're talking to a person who goes on a tightrope on one wheel and does a handstand. But that doesn't mean everyone has to do that.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. Well, let's unpack then the second step in your system, which is connection and then community for those who want to learn how to bike.
So when you are good at balance yourself internally, you will be able to enter the space like that. When you become very good at entering the space in yourself, you carry this aura of space around you wherever you go. When you meet another person, when they come in proximity, automatically, without you teaching anything, without you doing, just the way you are with that person will allow them passively to experience space within themselves. They will not even know what it is they're experiencing. What they will experience is just a certain sense of freedom and acceptance in your presence. And it will manifest as they like to be around you. When you say something, they find it easy to understand. They naturally understand the speech that you speak. They will not know why that is so. They will simply feel good when they are around you. The anxiety and confusion and fears of their life do not seem more important when they are around you. They will say, you make me feel peaceful. They will use these kind of words to describe their association. All of this is coming because of instinctive connection. When that connection becomes deeper, you teach them. And when there is enough relationship, you tell those people. When there's enough relationship, you tell those people a little bit about connection. And then they ask you, sometimes they will ask you, why is it that life is easier when I'm working with you? Why are why is it easier to accomplish things when I'm in your team and not in other people's team? Then you teach them a few things about finding space within themselves. And then they go applying it. Now you have two people working in connection. The minute you have two people working in connection, you have already created a community. You have created a community of two.
Mm-hmm.
From two to go three, three to go four, four to go eight, eight to go 16 is like that. It's very fast. So connection and community are, you don't need to do any work. You just have to be focused on space. Automatically connection and community grow out of that. Just like fruit automatically ripens in sunlight. The sunlight does not have to make fruit ripen. The sunlight just is sunlight. It just has to bring its presence to the fruit tree, and the fruit will ripen in the presence of sunlight. Like that, in the presence of focus and space, connection and community automatically emerge as natural products that manifest in its presence.
In this complex world where people basically fight each other with elbows, push each other, there's a lot of competition in all kinds of jobs. And this is what the Western world perceives performance as. And that's why in many conversations, including I'm guilty of that as well, there's a lot of interruption. But when you watch media, regular media, people constantly interrupt themselves, each other. Also, when you watch politicians speak, it's a standard for people to speak over each other. But to give space, you actually need to be quiet, or don't you?
So people confuse conflict as conversation. When those examples that you are describing is not conversation, that is conflict. People are actually dueling with words, they are fighting with words. So those kind of situations, there is no cooperation, there is only conquest. So in teams where function is the function of team is one of conflict, where there are opposing members who are going to conflict. It is constant opposition. And so the result is either conquest and then subjugation and domination, but there is no cooperation and there is no collaboration. Any collaboration occurs only in the form of what is called uneasy compromise, where two parties, one loses the argument, the other wins the argument, and the losing party says, okay, I will try to save the loss by compromising and appearing to cooperate, but constantly I'm going to look at ways to cut the other person, to undermine the other person. These kind of relationships exist, but they don't produce long-standing results. They don't produce really dynamic and expansive results. The teams that I lead in my clinic, in my healthcare organizations, don't work through conflict. They work through conversation. And the first conversation we have is everyone is equal at this table, and we give each other a space to speak, and there is a box that we give around the table, and whoever has the box can speak. The other persons have to stop talking. And in that space of stop talking, it is not that they are holding their tongue, but their mind is speaking. They have to hold their mind and hold it. And as the leader of the organization, I enforce that. And therefore, my team does not have conflict. My team has collaboration and cooperation. The other thing that we do is I also I make every member of my team, give each one of them their own island of zone of 100% control there, where no one can enter that zone. That is their territory. They are responsible for all the success and the credit that comes out of that. And if they choose to collaborate with somebody else, it is they set the terms. I don't set the terms. My only thing. The other thing I do in my is, so I have something called the Pentagon of Performance. The Pentagon of Performance is. Can I share my screen?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Let me open a slide. So the Pentagon of Performance is this. It consists of 5 principles and the central thing that I call the golden egg. The Pentagon of Performance consists of leadership, supportive autonomy, shared suffering, recognition, engagement. And these are 5 principles that you need to engage in your organization for space to create effect. Now, space is the context. The context is the why of performance. The constructs are the methods that you use to allow space to function. And the content is the resultant product that comes out of space functioning through methods. Are you with me so far?
Mm-hmm.
So, in the being of balance, you have content, which is how you do things, who you do it to, what you do it, when you do it, and what you know. This is all content. Context is the reason why you do all this. And context, the reason for life is space, but for the reason for an organization is the purpose of that organization. And I gave you this example earlier. For example, in a healthcare organization, you have the idea that what if you ask the question, what is your business? Your business, healthcare, diagnosis, testing, treatment, therapy, all these different things. And you can keep on adding. But the truth is, the reason why we do it is because we improve people's lives. And we do it through different ways of doing it. So the ability for context is like the space within which all the narratives, which are the options, the narratives are your content, and the constructs Now, when you go further down in the why of life, the golden egg within the Pentagon, context for my organization is we empower, we connect, and we validate. That is our space. The space manifests in this form. We have a construct called the methodology. The all methodology is the art of living leadership methodology. And the three musketeer policy is all for one, one for all. That means every member in my team works for every other member, and everyone does not work for themselves. They work for their fellow person, for the success of the fellow person. That is the methodology. And the content is the services we provide and the rewards we enjoy. And together, they form the root and the soil, they form the trees and the branches, and they form the fruit that we enjoy. But within this is the whole, and the way we execute the context, constructed content is through the Pentagon of Performance, where we have leadership as me as a leader, creating a space for my organization to bring out their talent and skill. Then I support them by giving them the freedom to make mistakes. One of the things we do when people make mistakes in my organization is I tell them, do you know what you should do right now? And if they can answer that question, yes, then I say, okay, then let us all get together and clean up the mistake. So that is shared suffering. The, the price, the cost of mistake is borne by everyone, including management. Somebody makes a mistake lower down in the organization doesn't mean that the CEO blames them and punishes them. No, the CEO gets in and cleans up along with them. So the way we borrow lessons from the Navy SEALs team in the military, the elite commandos, we function like that. And out of that comes recognition and engagement. And engagement is the final fruit. Engagement is when the organization, every member in the organization wants to come to work excited every day. And when we have organizations that say, leave your baggage at home, leave your baggage at home, don't bring your baggage from home to work. In my organization, we say, no, tell me what's happening. If your child is sick, then I can't expect you to be 100% here. Your ability to be of use to my organization is only as good as the rest of your life working well for you. So I work to not just make my job easier, I work to make my employees' job easier. So those are the principles. That's how when you give space and you connect with space, that is how life shows up. That is how it manifests.
You mentioned the art of living, and years ago I attended a course called The Art of Living, the Art of Leading, which was led by the head of the psychology clinic, I believe, in Graz. And he practiced, and his whole organization was based on principles of Taoism. Is this similar to what you've integrated?
Yeah. Everything comes to the same thing.
Yeah.
The secrets are not new, they are centuries old.
Yeah.
But people had to leave life and go and sit in a monastery to find it. Now,
and we took hundreds of years to forget it.
yeah. So what I say is you should not be able to have to succeed in mastery over life by giving up life. You should be able to get mastery over life while you are still in the middle of life.
Dr. Ravi Iyer, it was a true pleasure Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. How can
Thank you.
people get a hold of you, get trained in your system for performance management?
My website, www.driyer.com. I'll put it in the chat notes here.
I have
Uh,
it. I'll put it in the
yeah,
description. Yeah,
yeah.
just for the
So
people to
that'll
also
work.
hear it.
Yep.
What
And
can they expect in the first interactions with you? What is your process?
it depends on what kind of course you do. If you call me to give a keynote or a speech, the interactions are going to be of a different flavor. If you call me to give a workshop, the workshop can range from a 3 hour to a half day to a whole day to a 3 day workshop. Uh, if you do a 3 day workshop, you won't be the same person at the end of that. I can promise you. Most people get powerfully impacted in the course of a keynote speech. At the end of a keynote speech, they'll definitely uh, know that they have been exposed to something that is of value, and they would be curious as to how they can capture the value for themselves. But they won't know exactly how to do it. They will need to be guided. The best way to do it would be to get me over for a workshop, and that would be easy to do. That's not a problem.
Mm. Thank you so much.
Everything in this world, everything requires time, resources, and energy. And if you put these three things together, you can make anything happen.
Thank you once again. Fantastic last words.
Thank you.